And attachment, like our quote, is going to be one of the major things we'll be talking about today in this very first conversation. That will be love, attachment, love, addiction, and attachment injuries that happen in relationships. And of course, having this conversation with us every single Thursday morning is none other than Mrs. Bank Shazmeen. What's up?
How are you?
Your shoes are lighting up this studio. I know I say that about the last couple of shoes you've worn, but please, can we see her shoe? Somebody, tuonyeshe ni kiatu ya Shazmeen.
Dio.
Yeah? No? Wamekamilia kwangu. There you go. They are so cute. Cute. Ha, Shaz. Okay. Great to see you.
You too.
Yeah?
You look beautiful.
Asante.
What
Asante.
were Mo's words to you? Lighting up the world with your
Yes.
fire.
Sunshine and things.
Yes.
And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Mohammed Bank. So now that is out of the way, it's a very interesting and also very sensitive conversation that we're about to get into, and that is, talking about attachments, love, and addiction. I don't know how they're all intertwined together because it comes as one today. Maybe you can just break it down.
This is interesting, and you can almost feel the weight of it. And when I look at a conversation like the one we're going to have, a lot of people on the receiving end of addiction, of abuse from that, a lot of them tend to hide away or feel something's wrong with them, or are used to being shamed for being on the other side of the problem. And I feel a conversation like this needs baby gloves on. It needs love for the receiving end. It needs love for the person on both sides, literally. There's no one that's right. There's no one that's wrong in a situation like this. And when you look at love, you look at attachment, you look at the injuries that come from it, you look at something as simple as even maybe alcoholism, and you look at the people that are involved in it. It's so easy to turn around, and you'll find so many people easily saying, you should leave, you should never be with someone immediately like this. But when you look at the complexity of a relationship, of why someone is with somebody with an addiction, a lot of the times the person goes into that relationship, either they do not know that they're with somebody who has a problem, they're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't know that they have a problem themselves. And a lot of the times people also go into these relationships not realizing deep-rooted emotional trauma or pain. And that's truly the first place to start the conversation, because I've realized, we tend to address issues in grown-ups as they are.
Yes.
But that's not where the core issue started. That's not where we learned how to handle emotion or not handle emotion at all. It all stems from being a child. And so I feel this conversation is so important for the parent that's drinking, the parent that feels, we have alcohol in the house and, we're not using it too much. It's just, it's the light drinking,
occasional.
the social drinking. But you don't know in that whole scenario, also the dynamic of the family that's being played in a situation like that, how the child is also being brought up in a situation like that, and what trigger that the simple alcohol in your house could later be the escape for the child growing up with a lack of love, with abandonment, with rejection in that scenario. So it's such a complex topic. It's such a complex way of going into it, because a lot of people turn around and say, I've spoken to people who are addicts, and they turn around and say, my parents did not consume alcohol in that way. My siblings are perfect. I'm an A-star student. This was not supposed to happen to me. But when you look at somebody that's battling with any form of addiction, it now could be alcohol, it could be sex addiction, it could be any kind of addiction, drug addiction, even nicotine addiction. The root stem comes way back from something that has happened to you that you have not been allowed to ever deal with. Emotions you have not been allowed to bring to the surface. Emotions you didn't know exist. And something happens in life that triggers an onset of emotions for you, and you do not know how to deal with it. And so you are suffering. And so what addiction is, it's running away from suffering. It's somebody who is deeply in pain and does not know how to get help, ask for help, or sort out where they are in their life. And so the first drink, the first smoke, the first simple way of moving into the addiction is the first way of putting the Band-Aid on. But you put a Band-Aid on what you think is probably a scab.
Yeah.
What you do not realize is the infection is all the way down.
No.
And so the Band-Aid's not going to do anything. So the first thing to realize for anyone watching is people who are addicts are not evil. They're not bad. You look at even alcoholics. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's, it's anonymous. Everything's kept anonymous because there's shame to it. You bring shame to the family. You bring shame to the person. You bring shame to your children. And while there's so much pain and turmoil in a situation like that, many will leave, many will choose to stay. At the end of the day, the point is to bring awareness to a topic like this, to make it more talked about, so that the person going through this can also understand, I can be loved, I can get the help. They might look crazy, they might be withdrawing from the bank accounts, they might be not caring about the children. They're not present in your life at all. The person you fell in love with, you see in little sporadic bits now, but they're in there somewhere. And they're drowned out by the addiction that they're in. Now, why the addiction? When you look at how addiction works with the brain, okay? So we all have neurotransmitters, like thousands of them, millions of them running inside of our brain. When you start to get, into an addiction, you start to change the chemical balance of the brain. So you start to numb parts of the brain out. And those parts of the brain, as they get numb, the other parts of the body are releasing serotonin and dopamine. So you're numbing, which is what you're not wanting to deal with.
Yes.
But the body is also releasing a chemical that sends a reward to the brain saying, you feel good. So now slowly what you don't realize over time you're doing with the brain is you're telling the brain, as I numb this feeling, it's sending a reward to say, everything's okay. I'm feeling great. I can now cope with anxiety. I can cope with the depression. Because remember, it's the triggers over the years that are happening from what you've not dealt with as a child, which a lot of us grew up thinking life's normal.
That's how it's supposed to be.
This is how we grew up with our parents. Your parents treat you a certain way. It should never ever be questioned because they're your parents. You look more now at children growing up with narcissistic parents, with toxic parents. In your adolescence, where do you go? You cannot question that. You cannot talk back to a parent. You'll be smacked, you'll be hit. You're literally told to run to your room and that's where you sit. You're empty in a house that's supposed to be full of love. And then you grow up in the world looking for someone to fix it. And if someone doesn't come along, which is the love addiction, somebody doesn't come along to be able to fix that, you move into injury addiction, which is I'll have to solve this myself. If I intoxicate my pain, if I intoxicate my suffering, maybe somebody could love me, because the end game is always hoping someone can fix you. And the thing to remember, when you are in an addiction or you're in the cycle of being with someone in an addiction, the person is already hurting and they cannot fix themselves. So they've chosen this route to numb. So they are not going to be the person that can solve, fix, and heal you as you go through this cycle with them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Because it is a cycle of, I'm involved with this person, I love her, I love him.
Yes.
They're addicted to this. I feel I can be the savior to it. So I'm going to save you. I cannot save you, is what I'm realizing. Now I'm hoping you will also console the pain I'm going through having to be with you. But they cannot console the pain that they are in themselves. So they will never be able to console you. And that's why tough love strategies, are advised later on to try, the strategies of, because now when you look at families that are in with addiction, the money that's withdrawn, the savings that are withdrawn, the school fee should have been paid, it's not been paid.
Properties sold.
Everything is lost
Yeah.
to an emotion that's not dealt with. And it's not everything's lost to the bottle, because that's the typical way of looking at it. And when you
Yes.
look at it that way, you shame the person, and they're already living with shame and anger and frustration. And the minute it starts to arise, the minute they feel it, they numb it right back down. So they're not in a state to think about what you're going through, what you're feeling. They might go through little bits when they're having a better day. And the addiction is you are attached to what they give you in the moment. You're attached to, they're able to fill you up with love, with the kindness, with the bit you fell in love with in the beginning.
Yes.
And you think that will take you through long enough before you realize I'm right back where we started again.
You know how you get into it's said that you get into a relationship sometimes hoping that they will change and hoping that you will do something to make them change. So you get in hopeful and it's all happy-go-lucky. You do not see them for who they really are and what they're struggling with. And then later it becomes a problem because they can't pull themselves out. That means you've already gotten tired of trying to pull them out and it's not working. And then now you're just like, okay, now you do it then. Now I want you to see me. But that was not a problem in the beginning because you were focused on them.
You know, Peterson Jordan gives a beautiful example.
Yeah.
He says, if somebody is drowning, what a lifeguard is taught to do is when you go into the water is to explain to the person that's frantically trying to stay afloat that I'm not going to give you my hand so that you can pull me in. So you need to trust I'm here for the right reason and stop being frantic to give me a chance to save you. Because the worst thing you can do when somebody's frantically trying to stay afloat is get into the situation with them, and now they've pulled you in and you're both trying to stay afloat. One of you needs to be level-headed enough to say, you need to calm down so I can get you out. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you here because both of us are going to die, and that's not what I want. And I love that example he gives, because a lot of people go into a situation like this and now you both are drowning. And the outside voices now are too painful to even hear, because the outside voices are, you should have left, you should have known, what are you doing? But then there's also the very beautiful balance of knowing if you're not in a relationship with somebody in the addiction and you're already married to them, there's two different scenarios. The person in the relationship that's already married, you've got children, you've got the mortgage, you've got school fees, you've got life to deal with while dealing with this, while you still do love the person you are with, because that doesn't go away. The pain, the anger might mask how you feel about them. The lack of their change, the lack of them wanting the help will also bring a lot of resentment and anger. But people don't leave. People don't turn around immediately and say, I'm leaving the moment you make a mistake. I'm leaving the moment it's the full bottle. I'm leaving the moment you hit me. Why? Because we fantasize leaving more in the beginning than before we actually do it.
That's true.
And that's why people need to be softer with the advice that you're able to give. Now, that's a scenario where there's a whole world going on.
Yes.
You can't just pull yourself out. There's so much to think about. When you're in a relationship and you're dating and you're with somebody that you can see probably has this kind of a problem, you do have a chance to be able to also tell them that there's going to be a cost to the behavior, because they're not drunk all the time. They're not in addiction all the time. So they're in a state where they can speak to you. And a lot of the times now you have to be very careful, because people who can be addicted or are, alcoholics have a very dangerous way of gaslighting the situation back, of making you feel like you don't understand them, of making you feel like something's wrong with you for bringing this up. And because you're still in the stage of wanting to save them, you're still in the stage of wanting to make everything okay. You believe that. You're not on a platform like the lifeguard that goes in with the confidence to say, I'm not getting in here because both of us will die. That is not what I want for my life.
Yeah.
You are already in there. You're tossed in all the love, all the confusion, all the softness, everything that comes with being in love. On top of I can be the one that saves you, which also stems from a pain that you've been through in your life that leads you to feel that you are the savior. Because why is it some people will get into a relationship knowing what they're getting into and still choose to do it, which is very different from someone who does genuinely get into a relationship and they did not know. But somebody like that has a lot more strength to be able to say, no, enough, I will not put up with this. You need to change. There are going to be costs to our lives. Versus someone who's now tangled in and feels, what do I do? Can I leave? Am I evil for leaving? Is something wrong? And that's why it comes down to tough love.
We are taking a very short commercial break. On tough love, you're talking about love addiction and attachment injuries that come with all of it. And if you've experienced, if you're going through something right now where you're looking at your partner wondering, why am I still here? They're still addicted. I'm getting hurt by the things that are happening in this relationship. Or you're the person who is struggling with an addiction and you can see the effect that it has on the people around you, and you feel like you have questions and you need help. 111 444 111. That is our SMS line. Jasmine will be answering all of your questions after this break.